Have you ever felt like your life was crumbling? Like everything you once knew was suddenly upside down? What if your life wasn't falling apart? What if it was actually falling together? When life falls apart, this is what's really happening. It could be your spiritual awakening. It's the wake-up call that not many people are talking about. Hi, I'm Sadie Bale, and I completely ignored my spiritual awakening. It led to a dire financial crisis, a near divorce, and complete uncertainty about my future. But looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So if you're feeling lost or confused, or like the rug has been pulled out from under you, stick with me. You might just be experiencing a spiritual awakening. There's a book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces by Joseph Campbell. I read it many years ago. Joseph Campbell was a literary professor and an author, and he was very interested in mythology and religion. A publishing house approached him and they asked him to write a book so that people could understand what the myths were all about. In his research to write this book, he discovered something astonishing. He realized that the heroes in the stories went on similar journeys, that there were these similar signposts in every single story. And if you watch a good movie, all good movie scripts are based on this hero's journey or hero's quest. And when I attended a training with Tony Robbins, he briefly describes a hero's journey, and something inside me clicked. And I realized, oh, I was calling it my spiritual awakening. So that's why I'm so inspired to bring this video to you, because I've created a framework of 8 points that show you various things or challenges that you face as you go through this journey. So I'm going to outline these 8 easy points for you in this YouTube video. And if you would like a guide, something to help you with this, if you'd like to dive deeper into it, I've created a free workbook and you can download it. It's in the description below. All right, let's get started. Number 1, the call, a gentle nudge from the universe. This is when a situation arises and you're subtly being called to take action or do something about it, and you ignore it. So in my story, my husband and I were architects, and we were renovating and flipping houses on the side. And we just completed a renovation, and I fell in love with this house. It was beautiful with stunning views of the sea, and I begged my husband not to sell it. Against all his better judgment, he agreed with me, but it meant that we had to take a large loan from the bank in order to finance our next project. Looking back, I knew I was supposed to let go of that house, but I didn't listen. So if you're faced with this gentle, subtle message from the universe to do something, heed the call. Otherwise, the universe will just shout louder, which leads us directly into point 2, the refusal of the call, when life forces you to wake up. I suppose the title describes it perfectly. We hadn't sold the house, we were living in it. And out of the blue, the financial markets crashed and the property bubble burst. And here we were living in this house that we had mortgaged. And we had a second project that we just completed with a second mortgage. And the value in the houses had dropped out of the market. So even if we sold them, we still wouldn't make the money back. We were in dire financial debt. And not only that, being architects, our clients were phoning us one after the other to cancel their architecture projects. I remember when the last client called, I knew why she was calling, and I held it together on the call. But as soon as the call ended, I burst into tears. I felt like such a failure. I felt that everything was my fault, but it was too late. You can't go back. It's all happened. I thought I'd failed and I was a failure, but in reality, life was just stripping away from me all the things that I didn't need anymore, but I couldn't see it at the time. So maybe you're in this phase now where you feel like nothing you've done has helped and you're just not winning. Just be kind with yourself, be gentle with yourself, and see that it's not the end. It's just the beginning, but the beginning of something new. Which brings us to number 3, meeting the mentor. Divine guidance appears. I was feeling so low, and I spoke to my friend about it. I don't think I explained the true nature of the situation or how dire it was, but she could see that things weren't really going well for us. And she suggested that I go and have an angel card reading. I'd never had an angel card reading before, but the irony of it is I conduct angel card readings now for people. So this was the very first time I'd ever heard of the concept. And I met this lovely lady who, when she placed the cards, explained to me that I'd been so caught up in my life, in my material life, in creating wealth for myself and my husband, becoming an architect, a well-known architect, designing, building my practice. I'd just been so focused on all the material things that I was completely ignoring my spiritual life. And she advised me to bring balance into my life, to go and do a bit of spiritual exploration and find out more about how I can wake up spiritually. She didn't necessarily call it a spiritual awakening, but I understood that this was a part of my life that I'd ignored. I'd put on hold and ignored. So she gave me a recommendation to go and attend a Reiki workshop, and that's where I met the mentor. She was hosting a Reiki workshop, and I enjoyed it so much. It was waking things up in me that I didn't realize was slumbering. I started meditating. I started learning how to do breath work. And I was really locked into this new world that had opened up to me. So my advice to you is, if you're struggling, things are not going well, why not try something new? Why not open yourself up to a different way of seeing things or a different way of doing things? So if a friend recommends a workshop or a meeting or something that you wouldn't usually go to, keep an open mind and give it a try. You never know. Number 4, crossing the threshold, facing the fear. This is where you find yourself at the threshold between what your life has been up until now and where your life is going. And they are two different things. And that's why it's a threshold. And this is where you feel all the fear of this uncertainty of your future, because you don't actually know where it's leading you. So in my story, this became a crisis in my marriage. I was suddenly interested in all things spiritual. We had these two houses that hadn't sold. We had enormous debt still. And my husband was totally bewildered by what had happened to me. I'd become a vegetarian overnight, and he loved cooking, and all his dishes had meat in them. And suddenly I wasn't eating anything that he was cooking for me. Not only that, I was always out at attending workshops, or I was meditating night and day, burning candles, burning incense. He was really bewildered by this change in me. So we still had the stress of the debt. Then we had the added stress of me suddenly becoming somebody different, somebody he didn't understand or know. And we were headed towards divorce. So maybe this is the part that you're at in your life, or maybe you recognize this part where fear has a hold of you, but you can't go back. You have to go forwards. That this is such a crucial part in your journey. It's so easy to slip back into the old. I could have just said to my husband, "Oh, you know what, I'll just eat meat to keep the peace." But I couldn't. You have to really commit to fully to this new life and leave the old life behind. Otherwise, you'll get stuck. And you could get stuck here for years. So this is a very, very important part in the hero's journey or your spiritual awakening. We can't control what happens in our lives, but we can control how we respond to it. Number 5, the breakthrough, embracing the awakening. This is the part where you decide that enough is enough. And you start to tackle the situation in the best way that you can with whatever resources you have at hand. And you take responsibility for your life. So we were still in crippling debt. Our houses still hadn't sold. We had a little bit of architecture work coming in, but what I had a lot of was time. Suddenly, I'd been so busy before chasing one thing after another, and now with all this time on my hands, I decided to give back. So I volunteered to teach refugee children how to read, speak, and write in English. It was very rewarding. I took a part-time job at a bookshop where I met some incredible people, and I got to read whatever books I wanted to, which was a total gift. And I tackled whatever little architecture work was coming in with a lot of attention to detail because I had the time. And the best thing that happened was my husband and I reached a crucible point in our marriage, and we were going to get a divorce. We were going to leave each other. But we needed to talk about it first. So we sat down and we had a real open-hearted conversation that took several hours, but we spoke openly about how we felt. We were honest about our situation and what we felt about the situation. And we realized that we hadn't had a talk like this in years. We worked together, sure, and we were developing projects together. So basically, our conversations were always around work or what we had to do next. And we never really connected on a deep, intimate conversation. And when we did, we realized that we still loved each other, that we still wanted to be together and spend the rest of our lives together. That somehow the stress and the fear of the situation had crept in between us and made us strangers to each other. And after we had that conversation, it just took things to a whole new level. We agreed that we were a team. We'd had enough of being in survival mode. It was time to start thriving. And we were in this together. We had each other's backs. So it was a real turning point in the journey for me, well, for both of us. And maybe you had been neglecting something in your life that needed attention. And you can just take a moment, take a deep breath. What is the thing that you've been neglecting to do that you should have been doing? Maybe it's not your marriage, maybe it's something else. These are just signposts for the things in your life. So this is where can you break through and do something different and reconcile something in your life. My mentor had given me a mantra that said, I deserve the best. And I was meant to say this every single day, several times a day. And I really struggled with this mantra because deep down I didn't feel that I deserved the best. And I promise not to speak about vibrations, but I'll talk a little bit about energy. So if you have the energy that you don't deserve something, then it won't come to you, whatever it is you want. I was walking in town one day and there was a beggar singing, and she looked so happy. She was looking up and smiling, but I could see she was blind. It was very clear in the way she held herself and her eyes half closed. And I got closer to hear what she was singing because she looked so happy. And as I got closer, I heard her sing, I deserve the best. I deserve the best. And just smiling. There was light shining out of her. And I burst into tears because that was my mantra. And here was this woman who was blind, just smiling up, saying, I deserve the best. I put a big tip into her begging bowl, but she didn't even know. She didn't even care. She was just having her own rapturous experience. And that was a big turning point for me. I learned that when you stop fighting life and you learn to go with the flow of it, that's when the magic happens. Number 6, the journey, the new path unfolds. Embarking on this journey, you'll meet new friends and you'll be guided by new guides, both real and spiritual. And you'll be on a path that is guided. So if you trust the signs and you trust where you're going, then everything will start to unfold in the way that it needs to. For me, I met new friends at the volunteer work that I was doing. I met new friends at the bookshop. And with all this time on my hands, I attended guided architectural walks where we would go and discover quirky little buildings that weren't in the architecture books or in the history books. And we would enjoy just examining the architecture and the concepts and just the beauty of these buildings. And it was on one of these walks that I met a professor who was teaching at the local university. And he invited me to come and be a part-time studio master and tutor the third-year students. I was so excited at this opportunity. It was a dream that I had had for a long time, and it seemed to spontaneously appear for me. Not only that, with my newfound activities, giving of my time and my wisdom and giving back, and also believing that I deserve the best, I started to embody that. When that happened, I could let go of my ego attachment to the house. And as soon as I did that, the house sold. And then the project house sold. And suddenly life had new meaning and joy again. Looking back, every moment, every opportunity was all part of the plan. And so I encourage you to just go with the flow, just trust the journey, and the right people and the right opportunities for you will show up. Number 7, the hero's reward, transformation and abundance. Well, the title says it all. This is when you achieve your goal, when you reach that pinnacle, when you win the day. This is when everything turns around and all your problems are solved. For me, it was the sale of our houses. I could let go of my fragile ego attachment to the house, and then our other houses sold immediately. I think attachment has a big thing to do with this. And everything happens in divine timing, because we've been financially struggling for 2.5 years. And in that time, the property market had slowly been creeping up, so that when the houses sold, we achieved a really good profit. And with that profit, we were able to do all kinds of things that we hadn't been able to do before. We could go traveling. We had new adventures planned. And we were living our lives with renewed enthusiasm. So that fragile ego attachment to the house was actually the lesson, the spiritual lesson that freed me and got me to bring balance back into my life. Abundance flows for you when you trust the universe, when you trust the process, and you let go of trying to control everything. Number 8, the wisdom. The cycle continues. So what you gain from your hero's journey is not the end goal. It's not the pot at the end of the rainbow. It's who you become in the process. And I just described that my journey took 2.5 years. And in those 2.5 years, I learned so much and gained so many tools, so that when the next hero's journey cycle started, I had resilience and I had these resources. So you're in it for the long term. You're in it for, well, the whole of your life, really, because this cycle is one that just keeps continuing. I'd like to read a direct quote from Joseph Campbell. He said, "What I think is that a good life is one hero's journey after another, over and over again." You are called to the realm of adventure. You are called to new horizons. And each time there is the same problem. Do I dare? And then if you do dare, the dangers are there and the help also, and the fulfillment or the fiasco. There's always the possibility of a fiasco, but there's also the possibility of bliss. So if you're feeling a little bit lost or shaken up, or you're really not sure what's going on, everything you're trying isn't working, you're just going on a hero's journey, or you're having a spiritual awakening. So if this video has helped you in some way or brought some realization to your life, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you've enjoyed the workbook, I'd also love to hear about that. I encourage you to click the like button if you like this video. Click the subscribe if you'd like to hear similar kinds of videos from me. And I want to encourage you. Life is a series of journeys, one after the other. And don't lose hope if you think you've failed. Don't, because it's just the beginning of a new type of journey, or it's just the beginning for you to be able to allow new things into your life. Just keep an open mind. Trust yourself, trust the universe, trust your guidance, and know that you always deserve the best. Always remember that the hero's journey isn't happening to you, it's happening for you.